I get asked a lot about my arrows, and I thought I would take this opportunity to put together an arrow building video for you to show how I put together my arrows. Now, it's by no stretch of the imagination the be-all and end-all when it comes to arrow making videos, but it's just how I like to put them together. There are a million ways to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean this is the right way or the wrong way. It's just whatever works for you. I mean, there's all sorts of materials out there. There's tapes, there's glues. I'm probably going to be using tape today. That's what I'm using at the moment. It seems to work quite well for me. So yeah, just to let you know, this is a Timber Creek classic carbon arrow. We're going to show you how to sort of paint the back of the arrow and how to apply a little bit of cresting using one of these cresting jigs. I've got some 5-inch parabolic feathers on there. These are left wing. I'll show you how to identify left and right wing in a minute. But yeah, that's my arrow. So without further ado, let's look at the first step, which is prepping your shaft. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're just going to prepare the shaft ready for painting. So I mean, you can put your feathers directly onto the shaft if you wanted to. You don't have to crest or paint or anything if you don't want to. I personally like to do it, so we're going to go through it. But yeah, what you want to do, there's a very slight coating on the shaft here that you don't want to take the coating off. You just want to rough it up ever so slightly. Now, you don't want to use a really coarse grain because you're going to get sort of gouges in it. So you want something really fine, some wet and dry or 1000 grit. I mean, this is 1200 grit. Sandpaper. I got it from a car body shop. So it's just a case of you just want to just take that coating off the arrow shaft there, just getting it. You can see it just starts to go a little bit duller. So you just want to just give that a little bit of a rub where you are looking to apply the paint. And there we go. That is. That's all it needs, really. It doesn't need a huge amount of work. It just needs that bit of coating, just roughing up. So yeah, then what we're going to do, we're just going to use a paint preparation wipe, which just gets all the dust and everything off it. Again, from a car body place. You can use alcohol isopropylene or something like that if you wanted to, just to clean it. But yeah, that's your shaft pretty much prepped and ready to apply the first coat of paint. Okay, so once you've prepped your shaft, all that's left to do before we begin painting is just what we're going to do is just mask off the area that we're going to paint. We're just going to use common all garden masking tape for this. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy. Just take a small strip like that. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to put it on top of this ring here because we're going to paint this section down here. So if you can, just line that up as neat as you can along that line. Now, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight because we are going to crest this a little bit later on. So if you don't get a perfectly straight line, you can even that up on the cresting jig a little bit later on. But yeah, all we're doing is just looking for something like that. Okay, so once that's all maxed off and ready, we're going to go and apply the first layer of paint, which is going to be, we're just going to use a white. It's going to be an undercoat. Now I'm going to use a fluorescent yellow again on these arrows, but you can use whatever colour you want to suit your colour scheme. But I find if you use a nice base coat of white, it really covers up this dark brown. It's quite a dark colour to try and paint over. So if you put just a layer or two of white on there, that really helps. But before we start spraying, because you're always going to get overspray, and we don't want to spray anything down onto this area of the shaft. Just get a piece of paper. Now we've got an old archery target here, target face. But yeah, if you just put that on there and just give that a bit of a roll. You don't want it on too tight. It just lets you hold the arrow and it stops any overspray coming onto that part of the shaft. So let's nip outside and use some paint. Now, it's always important that when you're using any sort of aerosol or adhesives or anything, always use go in a well ventilated area, so we're better than outside. So let's pop out and then we'll go and put the first layer of paint on this arrow. Firstly, remove the knob from the shaft, then shake the can vigorously for a couple of minutes. It's important when doing any kind of spray painting to use several thin, light coats rather than one or two thick, heavy coats. You really will get a much better finish. Today I'm just using a NC acrylic paint by Montana Gold. I'm using a white base coat, but there are loads of paints out there. I just find this one gives me a really nice finish. So let's get spraying. Now we're just going to apply 2 very light even coats of white as a base colour. Doing that just makes it so much easier when it comes to applying the bright colour afterwards. Once you've applied those coats, let each one dry for about 20 minutes. And once you've put the last one on, let it cure for about half an hour to an hour. Once that's done, you're ready to put on your bright colour. As with the white base coat, it's best to build up the colours gradually, putting on lots of light coats rather than one big, thick, heavy one. I've put on about 3 coats of this fluorescent yellow from Montana Gold. Building up the colours gradually really gets you a nice, even finish. You'd want to let that dry for a good 24 hours, but obviously we haven't got that, so we'll get on to the cresting. So that is the arrow all painted. Now in an ideal world you'd probably let that dry overnight, but obviously we haven't got that sort of time, so that's probably it's dry to the touch after about maybe 20 minutes of putting the last coat on there. We've put several coats on, but nice thin coats sprayed evenly. It's not the absolute neatest job. I mean, I have sort of rushed it ever so slightly, but take your time, really sort of enjoy the process of painting an arrow. There are far easier ways to do it. You could use a wrap if you wanted, or whatever, but it's quite nice. I find it quite relaxing, but yeah, I've sort of rushed it a little bit quicker than I probably would normally. So all that's left to do is take off this tape, and then we can start cresting. There's just something that's quite satisfying about pulling this tape off. Now, there we go, that's come off there nice and easy. It's given us a really nice sharp line there, but we're going to crest on top of this white band here and on top of that white band there. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it in black or white yet, but I'll make that decision in a second. So let's just pop that knock back in there, and we are ready to pop that on the cresting jig. Okay, so we're about to do the cresting. Now you can, some people use sort of the acrylic paints and the paintbrush, which is fine, they're perfect to use, but I tend to favour these Posca paint pens. It just makes life so much simpler when I'm just using these, and I'm only using 2 colours on this anyway. If you want to get a little bit more elaborate, they do them in other colours, and the range of paint is quite comprehensive, so you can choose to do whatever you want to do in that respect. But I'm just going to use black and white just to give it a simple bit of cresting. I'm not going to go too fancy with it. All I'm going to do is I'm going to put these 2 white bands here. I'm going to turn those black, and I'm going to top and tail them with white. So give those a nice little shake up, put some spin on the jig. Now I love doing this. I find it so incredibly relaxing, but you've got to have a steady hand, so you're going to be a bit brave, so you're just going to delve straight in there. Now it's a bit of an awkward angle, but let's see what we can do. Just take your time. And block in that white bit there, and then we're just going to block in the second white band there. You don't want to put too much pressure on, you just want to coat it with the paint coming from the pen. It's the same effect as you get with a brush, but it's just that much simpler. And that's pretty much it for the black. So just have a closer inspection of that. Yeah, it's gone on quite nice. So I'm just going to let that dry for a couple of minutes. Then I'm going to apply a little bit of a top and tail with the white, and that's pretty much the amount of cresting I'm going to do. I might put a thin black line on there when it's done, just to Yeah, I'm going to do that actually. I'll put a thin black line on as well. And yeah, so that's the cresting. So we'll let that dry for a second and we'll put some white on. So we're just about to apply the top and tail white, again using one of these Posca pens. Now you don't want the cresting jig turned up to its absolute maximum. This one goes up to 11, but I've got this one set at about 9. I find it just gives you a little bit better coverage if it's not quite at maximum. So actually I'll start down this end, and you just want to apply the lightest bit of pressure on there just to give you a nice thin line. You don't want anything too thick and heavy. There we go. Top it on that one. And finish it off on that one. Then I've gone a bit wobbly there, but there we go. That's top and tail there. Now I think I am going to put a very no, I'm not. Yeah, I am. I'm going to put a very thin black line just here. On there. That looks nice, but you can do whatever you want with the cresting jig. You can go as far or as up here as you want, really. Also, just a little note: if you are, say, shooting in the NFAS and you have to number your arrows 1, 2, and 3, this is where you could potentially drop a couple of rings around your arrow. So you say if you wanted a number 2 arrow. You'd put 1 ring on for number 1, you could put a second ring on for number 2, you could even go as far as putting a 3rd ring on there if you wanted, just to help number your arrows, a simple numbering system. So that is our arrow shaft all painted and ready to go, using the boning cresting jig. Very simple to use. Like I mentioned before, I find it really therapeutic putting the little cresting bands on the arrow. Now that is relatively simple. This is just about as simple as you can get cresting wise. You can be as elaborate as you want. You can use whatever colours you want. You can really personalise your arrows and make them your own. Now there is one more step you can do to your arrow should you want to. You can finish it off with a bit of, seal it with a bit of varnish or something, depending what the look you want to go for. If you want sort of more of a matte look, leave as is. If you want more of a gloss look, then either use a gloss paint or you can apply a gloss varnish to it. But again, they're your arrows, you can do them whatever you want. So I think that's pretty much ready for us now to start putting some fletchings on. So without further ado, let's pop some feathers on, and then we're about done. Okay, so now we are ready to pop the feathers on the arrow shaft. Once you've decided on what colour you're going to go for, I mean, I'm going to use this nice sort of fluorescent yellow kind of colour. It seems to be my go-to colour at the moment, but you can pick whatever you want colour-wise. What you're going to need to do is you need to get yourself a jig. Now what I've got here is it's a boning fletching jig. This is a left wing clamp. Clamps generally come in left wing, right wing, or straight. This is a left wing for left wing feathers. If you've got right wing feathers, you need a right wing clamp. Now a quick way of determining which way, if you've got a left or a right wing feather, is if you hold it at the base. If it curls off to the left, it's a left wing feather. If you hold it and it curls off to the right, it's a right wing feather. Now all the feather does really is determine which way the arrow spins. Now I like a really pronounced helical twist on my arrows. I think it looks really good. I prefer the stability it gives me. The sort of archery I do, I don't shoot incredibly long distances, so I'd much rather have that stability. So without further ado, let's look at putting these feathers on the arrow. Now I'm using 5-inch parabolic. Your 2 different shapes you've generally got parabolic or shield. At the moment I prefer parabolic. There's not really any difference to them. It just it's just a personal preference really. Right, so you get your clamp. You'll start with the barred cock feather. We'll drop that into the clamp there. Now you can see there's little incremental markings. It's up to you where you put it. I generally go for this second mark down there. I find that puts the feather in just the right place for me. Drop your arrow into your jig like so. I'm using tape today. Normally, I mean, you can use glue. There's all different manners of glues, there's all different manners of tapes. I've honestly had mixed results with tape, but right now it really seems to be working for me, so I'm going to go for that just because it's the most simple. If you're using glue, try and make sure that you put as thin bead as possible. Tape, you know, if you haven't got the steadiest of hand or you're a bit messy and that sort of thing, then the tape is perfect. I'm just going to nip off that first little bit there. So yeah, you've got your feather in your jig there, or in your clamp I should say. Just drop the first little bit of tape onto the feather and feed it across. Now I generally have a little bit of overhang either side, and nip it off there, and that is as simple as it is. You just push that down, make sure it really bites onto that quill of the feather, and just give that a little peel. Helps if you've got some kind of fingernail. Pull that little bit of contact paper off there, and it doesn't want to go. Drop that onto the jig and place it down. Hold it in place for a few seconds, and that's your first feather done. Now I will say this jig is set up for a left wing feather. I've got it set offset even to increase that kind of the appearance of the helical twist on the feather. So that is on there like that. Let's just pop that off, and there we go. That's your first feather done. You can see it's stuck onto the shaft quite nicely. Now I'm going to go and do that to the other two, and that should be our arrow pretty much complete. So you just for the next one, most jigs will just offer you 3 incremental clicks to show you exactly where to put the feather. There's this bear paw one, however, has settings which will enable you to do 3, 4 and 6. Which is quite a nice little feature, but just keeping it simple using the basic boning fletching jig there. So I'm just going to drop another feather into there. And clamp the feather onto the shaft there. Just push it down. Just leave it a couple of seconds to sort of bite. I find if you take it off too quick, then it doesn't always adhere properly. Now the reason why I've left the paint a little bit matte is because I find the tape really bonds to it quite nicely. If you go for a really high gloss shaft, I find that if you're using tape, it tends to want to slip around the shaft. Like I say, I've had mixed results with tape, so that could just be one of the downsides. But yeah, if you pop your arrow out there, and then if you just run a finger down the quill there just to make sure it bites onto the shaft. Back into the clamp like that. And drop that tape on top. Just take it off, just with a little bang, and push that down, peel it off. There we go. Put that into place, and that's your final feather on there. And then you pop that out your fletching jig, and there you have it. One made up arrow. So the only thing left to do, should you want to, is it's always a good idea to do it, is top and tail the very tips of the arrows here. Now what you want to be doing is just get some normal fletching cement. This is some Saunders NPV. You just basically put a little dab on the very leading edge of the feather. It was a bit messy there. Just a little dab like that. And that basically just seals it, makes it a little bit more rounded. It takes that sort of sharp edge off the feather. It stops it catching on the shelf or whatever you're shooting. But yeah, they're a bit bulbous to start with, but they do shrink down. But yeah, that's basically how I put together an arrow. That's about as simple as I think I can make it. I hope you found that useful. This isn't by any means the only way to decorate arrows. Find your own way, use your own things. I mean, I've seen some really nice results, people using Sharpies. You get sort of a bit of a translucent sort of colour. There's all manner of things you can do with your arrows, but yeah, it's just nice to put your own stamp on something. Again, I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. I hope I haven't sort of rambled on too long, but anyway, you take care, shoot straight, and I'll see you on the internet. Bye bye. slightest bit of pressure on there, just to give you a nice thin line. You don't want anything too thick and heavy. There we go. Top it on that one. And finish it off on